Many people would say that SpaceX is the top space company because they can reuse their rockets, or because they do everything in-house, or because they get a lot of government money. But that's not true. Those are the consequences, not the causes of their success. If we want to understand how they dominate the space business, we need to dig deeper and see which decisions they made to be in the position they are today. At the beginning, there were mariachis, and the goal to build a cheap and reliable rocket that could make space more affordable. Before this, Elon had tried to purchase a Russian rocket to send a greenhouse to Mars, in order to revive public interest in space, but the plan didn't go as expected. The rocket was too expensive and the Russians didn't take him seriously, so they sent him back home empty-handed. Deceived and frustrated, he started running some numbers and concluded that he could build the rockets more effectively by himself. The idea was to build them for a fraction of the cost, because he thought that unless someone made rockets more affordable, space would only be available to governments and big corporations, and that would not be enough to build bases on the moon, cities on Mars, or to explore the entire solar system. So, that's why SpaceX was born, and that was their mission, to make space more affordable to everyone. Everything started with the Falcon 1, a two-stage small rocket designed and built using the first principle approach, which basically means that you need to question every assumption. That led SpaceX to do things differently. They didn't use the aerospace standard pieces, nor they made things in a typical way. Instead, they tried to innovate in every step of the process, and they managed to build rockets for much less money. All of this ended up in 2008 with the first successful orbital launch. After 3 failed attempts and at the very last bullet they had, they were the first private company to launch a rocket into orbit by themselves. Then, they continued with the Falcon 9, the Cargo Dragon, the Falcon Heavy, and eventually the Crew Dragon, that sends astronauts to low Earth orbit and to the International Space Station. All of these were developed internally and with the same approach, making everything simple, reliable, and fast. Just to show how much efficient SpaceX was, the development cost for the Falcon 9 is estimated to be around $300 million, while other companies and agencies usually spend billions on the development of a new launch vehicle. This fast-paced, iterative design and innovative ideas helped SpaceX to build the perfect environment in the company, allowing the best engineers to work on the best projects, and providing them with the tools to develop technology that will change humanity's future, instead of having boring and bureaucratic jobs that leave you feeling like you are wasting your time on less significant things. This is also amplified by the way SpaceX promotes people, which is really simple and we could all learn from, so let's see it. First, demand what is thought to be impossible. Then promote the ones who make it, and finally give them more responsibilities. That makes everyone work as hard as they can and promotes a culture of hardcore effort that, at the end, allows them to achieve incredible objectives and squeeze every ounce of engineering out of their employees. They proved their innovative thinking and their perseverance to achieve impossible goals when they managed to land the Falcon 9 in 2015, reusing the booster in the following year and having a 100% success rate in launch and landings for the past 2 years, with more than 100 flights. These recoveries were once considered impossible, and some people even laughed when SpaceX attempted them. However, it has been a year since the first successful landing, and no one is even close to replicating this achievement. This environment, this talent, and this desire to work harder than anyone is what allowed SpaceX to progress towards their main goal, becoming a multiplanetary species. Everything that is done in the company is to help humans leave Earth, starting with Mars, which may sound like a fool's dream, but in the meantime, this vision is creating the best aerospace company that the world has ever seen. And that's not even the beginning. The most significant product born from this vision is Starlink, a low Earth orbit satellite constellation that will bring low latency internet to every part of the world that fiber and 5G cannot access. Starlink was not initially part of the plan. They didn't have any intention to build something like this when they started the company. Instead, it was the best product that they could offer in order to provide funding for all the Mars-related ambitions. That's because launching rockets into space is as hard as it can be, but it is not very lucrative. Despite doing it more than anybody else, the SpaceX rocket business only generated around $2 billion in revenue in 2022, not enough to finance the Mars operation. On the other hand, the internet access market is estimated to be around $1 trillion, and SpaceX, having their own launcher and being able to build their own satellites, could aspire to take a significant piece of that pie, so they did. Starting in 2019 and having deployed more than 5,000 satellites to date, they have the biggest satellite constellation in history, which is currently providing internet to more than 2 million users. There is even a good chance that Starlink's revenue has already exceeded the revenue from rocket launches and crewed space missions. and it has the potential to reach $30 billion annually, a significantly higher sum than what they could generate through the rocket business, and even surpassing NASA's budget, enough to finance whatever mission they want. It is also important to note that although many other companies like OneWeb or Amazon are trying to build similar constellations, the fact that SpaceX builds the dishes, the satellites, and the rockets, and it is also the only one reusing the boosters, makes almost impossible for anyone else to have a more cost-effective product, and it will take some time until the competitors can catch up. Okay then, SpaceX is impressive and all, but just how remarkable are they? Are they much ahead of their competitors, or does someone have a chance to dethrone them? Let's have a look to the other space companies and agencies that launch rockets into space to have a better idea of all the context. We have the old space represented by ULA, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and many other US contractors. They were the big players once a time, but they got too comfortable in their positions and they are no longer able to compete against the new guys. They don't have any cost-effective product and they will only be around doing space stuff as long as the US government wants redundancy. Also, they have had the money and the knowledge to try to build a reusable and cheaper rocket for a long time, but decided not to do it for whatever reasons they had. Then we have a bunch of small satellite companies, led by Rocket Lab, which is the only one that has a real chance of surviving in this market. They have a small rocket, the Electron, capable of sending small satellites to specific orbits, and they are developing the Neutron, which, if successful, will be the best option for a rocket that is not fully reusable. They could keep a small part of the launch market, as well as the satellite manufacturing business, but all the other small launch companies like Astra, Firefly, or Relativity Space will probably die or be acquired by some other company. Finally, we have the big elephant in the room, Blue Origin. Founded by Jeff Bezos in the year 2000, it has been around for more than 20 years, the same as SpaceX, but here is where the resemblances end. They have only developed a suborbital rocket for space tourists willing to pay $500,000 for a 10-minute ride to the edge of space, and a rocket motor, the BE-4, which has yet to demonstrate that it is capable of anything. They are also working on an impressive rocket, the New Glenn, and some spectacular space station, Orbital Reef, but for now we only have factories, promises, and PowerPoints, nothing that inspires much confidence. In conclusion, Blue Origin is a company that has the worst part of the old space, which is lobbying and slow pace, and it is also losing billions each year like a startup, billions that Bezos has to put from his own pocket. To be fair, we still have some other competitors: China, India, Europe, and Russia. It is not a direct comparison as these are government agencies, but some of them are doing impressive work and are the only ones attempting to emulate SpaceX in a significant way. It is not the case of Russia, which is no longer the space power it once was, and it will only keep getting worse in the following years. Nor is the case of Europe, who has so much bureaucracy and lobbies that cannot make anything happen in time and effectively. They are still important in the space business, but not as much as they could be, or as much as they wanted to be. The only ones that have a real chance to compete with SpaceX are the Chinese, and in second place but promising work and ideas, the Indians. With both countries having a population over 1 billion people, they have the human and economic resources to do whatever they want in space. They are also avoiding the US and Europe problems of being too comfortable in their positions and stop innovating, and instead they are entering a race to demonstrate that they can also do big things, and they are crushing it. With both countries having landed on the moon over the past years, and the Chinese also sending a rover to Mars, they are in fact important players in this new space race. Even competing against entire countries and continents, SpaceX is launching more than everybody else, and puts around 80% of the total mass to orbit each year. And they are also doing all of this at a much lower cost than all of the other competitors. Let's see the numbers. They have the luxury to sell their Falcon 9 launches for $65 million, while their cost should be around $20 million per launch, so a 70% profit margin, while still providing the cheapest ride to space. They are able to have these margins because they are the only ones that are using their rockets, which brings down cost a lot and allows them to have an unprecedented pace, reaching 10 launches per month. And they have accomplished that by designing from scratch, innovating in every step, questioning every assumption, and daring to do the impossible. And the most important part is that no other company or government is even close to the reuse SpaceX is doing. For now, we only have PowerPoints of rockets that in the best case scenario will be similar to the Falcon 9, and that should not be a big threat to its dominance. That's why SpaceX is the king of rocket development, of rocket launches, of crewed spaceflight, and of satellite internet business. They have built a company that is capable of achieving what once was thought as impossible, and that are pushing the limits at an incredible pace, with no other company or country matching their steps. In this space race, the hare is not only not stopping to rest, but it is running faster and faster, which makes it practically impossible for the rest not only to compete, but just to keep up. And all of this is not considering their biggest asset, which is the holy grail of rockets, their fully and rapidly reusable Starship, and the Starlink B2 satellites that this new rocket will be launching, which we will see in the next video. Take care and learn more.